Welcome and thanks for joining us. David, it's great to see you again. Well, we have received a couple of questions from the audience, so thank you so much for your involvement, and I hope you're ready to give some good answers.
I'll try my best.
Yeah, great. So let's kickstart this conversation with the first question. What is the latest with the citizens' prosecution? Will Allison Saunders go to prison?
Well, the latest is we're building a movement. We're fundraising. I set a goal of raising £5 million because I know that Allison Saunders is a multi-millionaire and she's got a lot of financial resources to throw at her defence. We want to get all the men that were maliciously prosecuted by Allison Saunders to come to court to testify. A lot of them have reached out to me to say they're willing to do that. And I'm continuing to do these interviews with you to raise public awareness about Allison Saunders. I continue to press the case that she has perverted the course of justice on a systemic statewide scale. And a lot of men like me were lucky enough to be acquitted in our malicious prosecutions, but others were not. They were jailed. They committed suicide, they lost their jobs, they lost their reputation, and these are law-abiding citizens. These are law-abiding guys. So I want the case to be made in court as opposed to in the press. And if convicted, I don't think there'd be any debate that Allison Saunders would go to prison for the rest of her life. I think the crimes are so egregious and they're on such a massive scale that no sentence less than life in prison would really be acceptable.
Another viewer is asking, is the Crown Prosecution Service still maliciously prosecuting British men?
It's a really good question, actually. After Allison Saunders left, the anti-terror chief, Max Hill, took over, and he was a guy that is expert in preventing terror. So Allison Saunders had led this reign of terror over the British people, or British men specifically, and we needed someone that was an expert in terrorism to come in and basically sort everything out. And there's no doubt that the Crown Prosecution has sort of improved its performance since Allison Saunders left. The number of malicious prosecutions has dropped. There's far fewer cases being reported of, well, this guy's on trial for rape, but we don't have any evidence that he committed rape, that sort of stuff. The policy of all accusers must be believed no matter what, which was Alison Saunders' signatory policy, has been reversed. And the Chief of Police, Cressida Dick, said police can no longer blindly believe female accusers. They must, seek out evidence and build a case based on the evidence and have a presumption of innocent until proven guilty, whereas under Allison Saunders it was guilty until proven innocent. So there has been an improvement, but of course this could be a short-term thing. If the head of Crown Prosecution Service is allowed to get away with maliciously prosecuting our citizens and not be punished or prosecuted herself, what's to stop another head of Crown Prosecution Service from doing this in the future? So that's why we have to have a disincentive. Rape convictions have gone down in the last sort of couple of years, but accusations against men continue to increase. They've almost doubled really in the last 4 years. And so feminists say, well, if there's all these accusations going up, rape convictions need to be going up in a proportionate way, but they don't make any mention of whether any of these accusations are legitimate or if they're false accusations. And as you know, in Britain, false accusers very rarely get punished. So it is it's a situation that is in a state of flux, I would say.
Can I call you to talk about my son's false accusations?
Yeah, I've got a lot of, since I started doing these videos with you and people started to know me as being someone that speaks out against false accusations and leading the citizens' prosecution, people have gotten in touch with me saying, I've got my son's got a case, or my nephew's got a case, or they've got a case, and can I give them advice? And I'm not a lawyer, I always tell everyone that, but I do provide strategic advice to these people, and if people want my help, I'm happy to hear from them. Just go to the citizensprosecution.org website, and there'll be some information there, and they can email me, and we'll go from there.
What do you think will happen to the millions paid to Allison Saunders by British taxpayers?
Well, I think all that money should be given to the families of men that were maliciously prosecuted on her orders and who committed suicide. I think that money will end up going to her legal defence in the citizens' prosecution, so she'll use it to try and defend herself and keep herself out of prison, yeah.
If you came across Allison Saunders on a dating app, would you swipe left or right?
Well, I can't imagine I ever would come across Allison Saunders on a dating app, because any dating app company would never allow her to come on there. Just kill their business. Totally every man on the site would leave immediately for fear of, having her, just the memories of her maliciously prosecuting British men. I just can't imagine that situation would ever occur. And not to mention the fact, I think you need to have a certain level of attractiveness just to get on a dating app, and Allison Saunders would fall below that.
Well, as long as she has power, she doesn't need to have looks.
That's right.
All right, next question. Why is my beautiful, educated daughter still childless and unmarried at age of 35?
Well, that's a very good question. A lot of women sit around asking themselves that these days, and feminism is the cause. I mean, biology tells all women that they're at their most beautiful and fertile period of their life when they're in their sort of prime years, 18 to 25 or 18 to 30 or whatever it is. As women go beyond that threshold, it's harder for them to have children, and it's also they are less attractive to men as they get older, or less attractive to the men that they once were able to attract, or that were once interested in having relationships with them, but who they turned down. So women turn down desirable men to pursue a career, and as time goes on, they are less able to attract the caliber of men that they once were able to, and they keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and miss the moment. And I think a lot of women are going to get to the point of life where they're unmarried and they don't have children, and they're going to look back and think about all that attention they got from men when they're 18 to 25 age range, and regret that they did not get married and did not have children. Yeah. And I think this will create this political movement of unhappy women, which is what we're sort of starting to see, and we're going to see more of going forward. Yeah.
We know that men get accused of sexism for a wide array of offenses. Yet what does a woman need to do to be guilty of sexism?
I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe you have some thoughts. I think we talk a lot about sexism in the country, but it's always against men. It's men being sexist towards women, but women commit a lot of unsavory behavior towards men, and no one calls it sexism. I think that we need to have a very sort of strong debate in the country and clearly define, is sexism bad behavior by one gender against another, or is it just bad behavior by men against women, which is, we should call it something else, which just say bad behavior by men or anti-female behavior, rather than call it sexism, because it makes it seem like it's sort of equal if it's by men against women or women against men. But of course, when women behave badly towards men, no one's ever sort of accusing the woman of sexist behavior ever.
Do you think it's easier to be a man or a woman?
I think it's easier to be a man, yeah, I do. I think I've always liked being a man. I wouldn't want it any other way. I think it's easy in the sense that you're in control of your own life. Women are always sort of dependent on someone else, and maybe that removes the responsibility pressure that people have, but I think men thrive on responsibility, and maybe women thrive on interdependence and family life. So whether it's easy or hard or not is probably a slightly more complicated question. I think that I'm happy being a man. Maybe all women would say they're happy being a woman, but I think women tend to be more unhappy on average And that's what leads me to answer that question that way, yeah.
We have one more question. Do women use their sexual power to flirt with men and advance in their careers?
I think that's a really good question. There's a lot of debate around sexual harassment in the workplace being, you know, predatory men or creepy guys or sleazy guys taking advantage of female colleagues. And I believe that it takes two to tango. I think there's a lot of women out there. Traditionally, women got married and their sexual focus was on their husband or their husband-to-be. Now we live in this age of sort of men and women being these sort of sexual free agents. And women are using their sexual power to advance in the workplace because that's their source of money and income. It's not coming from their husband, it's coming from their employer. So the further they can move up in the workplace, they are able to get more money. And beautiful women want to use their sexual power to do that because it's a competitive advantage for them. This sexual provocation in the workplace, you know, provokes men into sexual advances or sexual propositioning of women. And if the guy is an attractive guy, it's no problem. The woman's happy about that. But if the woman's attracting men that are less attractive or of a lower status than she wants, that's when she has the ability to call it sexual harassment or sexual assault. So I've talked a lot with you about an unequal justice system, men and women being treated differently. But what we also do is we treat attractive men differently to unattractive men. If you're a great looking guy in the company, a high flyer, you can flirt with all the secretaries, you know, no problem. But if you're, you know, Kenny from the warehouse, you're not able to do that. Even though it's the same behaviour that the Crown Prince of the company is doing. So it's a double standard again. And I think women don't want to spend all day, every day fending off unsuitable men, but they want to make themselves as attractive as possible for desirable men, not so much to settle down with, but to help build their career with. And I think that's what's happening a lot, and it's what's causing a lot of problems.
David, we have many questions more to go, but I think we will leave this for the next interview. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. And if you have your question and if you really want to know an answer, drop us a line and I will get David to answer it as fast as possible. Thank you so much, David.